My health is low. Gather, my friends, and be healed.
Hello, ballers, and welcome to your Resto Druid guide for 7.2.5 and onwards, the big tree. I've had to put in a lot of extra practice with this because I'm not the best healer. It's a role I tend to avoid at all costs. Not because I don't particularly enjoy it, but I prefer the other two, simply put. But the Resto Druid has been a stalwart. Ever since it changed to the hot style of gameplay in the Burning Crusade, it has been present in every single raid encounter in some form or another. Never the one to be dropped because it has so much versatility, and that is true in Legion as well. So what you've got is a talent setup that some will feel is quite rigid, but it's actually not. There's lots of choices. Right tool for the right job is the way healers like to approach things. How many people am I healing? What kind of damage is it? And that's really present in Mythic Plus, where the type of damage people take varies massively from super heavy to over time. Not only that, but the Resto Druid's capabilities of putting out massive raid healing with Tranquility and also being able to just naturally heal on the move makes it a very desirable choice for many. So let's take a look at our talent setup for our big Resto Druid. Now, you're going to find a lot of people saying, well, this is the build I take, right? In fact, if you look around, you're going to see all kinds of different people saying this is definitely the build I take. Now, it's different. So why is that? And that's because the Resto Druid and healers in general is right tool for the right job, right? And then people find what their character and what their content that they do, they find the talents that's suitable to that, and that's how they come up with what they believe is their favorite build. So my aim, as always in the guides, is to teach you how to decide yourself what is the best build for what you're doing, and to also teach you as best as I possibly can instill into your brain that there is no such thing as a set talent build. There's no such thing. It changes, depends. Even talents that some people will go, that is shit, that is dead. There's a time and a place for it. There's a time and a place for it. So the stats you're going to be getting are generally haste. Get your haste up there. Then you're going to look for some more crit versus mastery for the most part. Okay, but they're all pretty goddamn close, if I'm being honest. They're pretty goddamn close. In early stages of gearing, just get yourself, try and focus a bit on haste in the early days and balance everything else out as you go higher up the chain. So let's get started then. So at level 15, we kick off with Prosperity, and Swiftmen now has 2 charges and its cooldown is reduced by 3 seconds. This is actually a great talent. Most of these talents are actually really good. What they've done is done some synergy, similar to like a Havoc Demon Hunter, where you can mix and match some of your talents to make more sense. So let's go over our abilities. Now you'll see, I'm going to have to point this out, my UI is very different for healers. And that is because I have my raid frames here, so the focus of my attention is always in the center of my screen. My abilities, are you ready? Spoopy are actually up here. They're hidden away from view and they're all keybinded because I track the spells that I want to keep. So this is how I work it. And you're also going to notice something interesting is all these are macros. They are mouse over macros. Now you can get some add-ons that I'll talk about later that do this for you, but I use mouse over macros because one of the slowest things about healing when you get started is clicking the person to heal them, right? Having to go around and click people to heal them. That actually is very, very slow. Now this is actually a Wednesday morning, so I imagine there are some people near the chest. I would hope. I've not opened my chest yet. I'm saving it. So there's no people around here now. But what I want to be able to do in all situations is just point at people and heal. Right? That's what I want to do. I want to point at people and heal them. Not select them and heal them, which is a big old waste of time. So you can see I can just mouse over people and start casting heals on them and get some stuff done. And that's how I like to play my little tree. Also, tree farm is the best. Make sure you're using tree farm. So we have a number of spells. We have Regrowth, which is starts off with a big heal and then leaves a hot over it. Bump, yes, we got a nice big fat heal. We have our go-to spell, which is our Rejuve, which is just a nice big powerful heal over time. Healing Touch, which is our flat basic heal, yeah, nice and cheap. We also have Wild Growth. Now, Wild Growth is very interesting. It heals up to 6 people within 30 yards of the target, right? So whoever we pick. The healing starts really high, so it does most healing very quickly. This is a spell you want to get used to, because if you do it late, like, so when big damage is coming in on a few people, you want to time that Wild Growth so it lands. So if we have a big ability coming in 3 seconds, we want to go 3, 2, 1 damage, and then the heal. Yeah, that's what you want to be doing. As soon as that damage goes out, boom, your fucking wild growth lands and you're just like, yeah, buddy, look at that wild growth. It actually feels very satisfying. I'm not joking. We also have efflorescence, something you want to keep track of, either by an add-on or whatever, or you can actually see it. I have it on my unit frame here, is to keep efflorescence down on the most reasonable place to put it. If you're going to be putting it on the melee, let's suppose our big Milan here is indeed the tank, and the boss is in the middle and the melee here. You want to drop it like this, right? So the tanks are in it, it goes through the boss, and all the melee are in it as well. Try and encompass as many people as possible into that. And we also have our Life Bloom. It heals the target. It's such an efficient heal. Costs fuck all to cast. You're going to want to get massive uptime on this, because it also generates clear casting procs, which gives us free spells, which gives us more mana, which all works really nicely. We have our Essence of Garnier. 1.5 minute cooldown from our artifact. It releases the natural power within Garnier to increase the frequency that all your heal over time effects heal allies by 100% for 12 seconds. Just massive burst healing across a lot of people if you've got a lot of hots going. You can use it single target as well though. If your tank is like dying and you've got your hots up and he's still taking way too much damage, consider an Essence of Garnier. Moving down, we have Ironbark, our big cooldown. 99% of the time it's going to be on the tanks. Not always, though. Not always. I was thinking I did a high Mythic Plus on my Resto Druid recently. It was Dark Heart Thicket. Putting Ironbark, but especially in higher Mythic Plus, you're going to notice the tanks aren't as much of a problem as everybody else is, right? They take way more damage than the tanks. The tanks can look after themselves. When you cast Feed the Weak on a target, on some weaker targets, Ironbark was the tits. Really good. And Swiftmend, which is a nice spot heal, but it does have a 30-second cooldown, but so it can save lives. Get used to using your Swiftmend, yeah? Get used to using it. And we also have Innovate, which allows us to cast spells for totally free, and we're going to try and get as many uses out of Innovate as possible. So now we know our spells. So Prosperity gives us 2 extra spot heals and works really nicely with Soul of the Forest, which we'll get to later. So that's generally what it does, 2 spot heals. Cenarian Ward, it protects a friendly target for 30 seconds. So you put the shield on the target for 30 seconds. And any damage taken will consume it. So it procs it, and it heals the target for 600,000 over 8 seconds. Really cool ability. Absolutely fantastic ability. Just this extra hot that you're giving to targets on demand. If they're taking damage, you can just back them up with this extra hot on top of the hots you already have. Really fantastic. Abundance. For each rejuve you have active, the cast time of Healing Touch is reduced by 10%, and the crit chance of regrowth is increased by 10%. Right? And that is for every rejuve, which means you can get near a fucking 100% crit on regrowth with this. Which one do I pick, Preacher? Well, we obviously put some recommended builds in the background, but what you should realize, hopefully now, what type of healing am I doing? If you're blanketing a group, so if you're doing Mythic Plus that's taking a lot of steady damage on everybody, so there's a lot of rejuves flowing out, because that's your go-to heal, right? So you're rejuving 5 people at a time, then Abundance becomes way more interesting, because you're going to get all these super fast healing touches and these massive crit regrowths flying out. That actually makes your healing so much better in that scenario. If it's not like that, though, and you need to be able to get an extra hot on one target, Cenarian Ward becomes more valuable. Are people likely to get some random spike damage pretty regularly? Then maybe you want to take Prosperity. Generally speaking, you'll want Scenario Ward or Abundance, though. Prosperity doesn't quite come into the top tier right now, but just be aware of what it does. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just being aware of what it does. At level 30, your go-to is generally Displacer Beast. As a healer, you can't, even though we have ultra mobility as a Resto Druid, we can run around all day casting spells, right? Especially we've got things like Germination, where we can do it now, we can just stop and regrowth, and then carry on with our clay casting procs. We want to get out of trouble fast, so if something appears under your feet and you need to move fast, then you can just quickly Displacer Beast out of there and be back to healing instantly. That is far quicker than jogging your ass over there like this, right? Far, far quicker. So in nearly all scenarios, Displacer Beast is generally the best. With Wild Charge, of course, we get Fly to an ally's position. Great. Not really something we often need as a healer. Or Renewal instantly heals yourself. You're a healer. You can instantly heal yourself in most scenarios anyway, because you just are healing. At level 45 comes down again to the content you're doing. Do you need to do way more damage? Feral Affinity is the way to go if you're going to be contributing much more damage. Or do you prefer to stay at range, then maybe you want to pick up some more balance spells? Entirely up to you. Feral gets 15% movement speed base. We don't really need that. We can move easily anyway without much punishment, and we can displace a beast if we need to go really far. So it's not the movement speed we really want from Feral, but the damage. Guardian, though, again, the more difficult content you get, the more tempting Guardian becomes. 6% flat damage reduction, being able to pop into bear form, do all those kind of things becomes much, much handier. If you're soaking or something, doing crazy like that. Level 60, entirely up to you. Typhoon, Mighty Bash, Mass Entanglement, just depends on what content you're doing. Typhoon is generally great. If you think about Halls of Valor, when you see those mobs go and stand in a rune of healing and the tank can't move them and he's like, they're all healing. You can just go, yeah, bro, I got this. Typhoon, knock them all away out of the rune of healing. Happy, happy days. So, level 75, we get some more interesting choices. Okay, I'm going to talk about Cultivation first. When you rejuve, heals a target below 60% health. It applies Cultivation, healing them for another 74,000. So, if you're out of options besides spamming Regrowth and you rejuve is already on the target, it just means if this guy spiked, rejuve is already there doing its job. Right? Rejuve is just going to do the extra job while it's already ticking while you're casting other heals. Really nice spell. Soul of the Forest, though, if we are going to be Swift Mending, and you will be Swift Mending because it's a great spell, when you cast Swift Mend, you gain Soul of the Forest, increasing the healing of your next Regrowth or Rejuve by 200%, or increasing the healing of your next Wild Growth by 75%. Now, the interesting thing here is this turns Soul of the Swift Mend into a cooldown, because it has this extra effect, right? Now, it'll happen anyway, even if you're not aware of it. But obviously, I want you to be a good player. I want you to know that, oh, cool, I've got Soul of the Forest, and let's say I need to do a massive Wild Growth. There's a big AoE damage spike coming, like I just showed you. Then I can do something like Swift Mend somebody. Yeah, use that Swift Mend. Then put out a massive Wild Growth. Yeah? You could do things like that. Or is somebody taking huge amounts of damage, one person, so you could Swift Mend them to get them back up, but they're probably still dying, and then you could put a huge Regrowth on them, yeah? Or if it's going to be going for a while, a huge Rejuve. If you take Soul of the Forest, just be very aware of what your Swift Mend is now a cooldown. Also makes Prosperity a little bit more interesting, because now you have 2 Swift Mends to play with Soul of the Forest, yeah? Incarnation, though, Tree of Life, turn it into the big tree. The big Justice Tree. Really good when you're dealing with some seriously heavy-hitting packs, right? Do I have to make this raid super healing? So what does it do? It increases your healing done by 15% flat. That's everything you're doing. Your healing's increased by 15%. And granting protection from polymorph effects. Functionality of Rejuve, Wild Growth, Regrowth, and Entangling Roots is enhanced. So you get just far more powerful spells. This is great for... some examples would be... some super dangerous packs in High Mythic Plus. So I'm talking like Lower Kara with Explosive like I did yesterday, where some of those packs in there are just death to everybody. Maybe you want Incarnation for that, or some of the more nasty packs in like Dark Heart. Having Incarnation there to pop in and just fucking spam heal, this extra big cooldown, really, really nice. Spam healing the raid, really, really nice. Having these options there for this on-demand burst healing, and it is very bursty, super cool. Super, super cool. But bear in mind, what are you doing over the course of the fight? Right tool for the right job, right? At level 90, Germination. Let's talk about Germination for a while, because it sounds amazing, but you have to be realistic about it. You can apply Rejuve twice to the same target, okay? So if you take Germination and you Rejuve yourself, you can put Rejuve on again and they get 2 hearts. You can see it's Rejuve Germination, okay? As you're healing more people, this becomes less interesting, because there simply isn't enough... You can't blanket everybody in Rejuve and Germination. It's not possible. By the time you get to a few targets, the other ones have run out. So the more people you're dealing with, the less interesting this is. Okay? But it is very, very powerful to have double Rejuves up. It is very, 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 very powerful. So bear in mind that it depends on what are you healing and how many people are you going to be healing actively and how much of that healing is going to be Rejuving. If it's all constant damage over time, then maybe this is going to be fantastic. But just bear in mind that once you get to higher levels or higher amounts of people, it becomes less tempting to take this. In which case, you might want to take something like Inner Peace or Spring Blossoms. Inner Peace gives you a 1-minute reduction on Tranquility. I'm seeing a lot of benefit from this after talking to a lot of people, especially when they're doing like 10-man only raids, where the amount of healing raid cooldowns is drastically reduced, in which case you want to be having more Tranquilities at your disposal. Right? Because most fights are based around the fact that healers have big raid cooldowns. We know the monks are able to just bang heal out the entire raid, right? We know that Resto Druids can do something similar. So if you don't have those options, let's say you have a Disc Priest and you're relying on Light's Wrath or just Bubble, you might want to have access to more Tranquilities. Yeah? Or you could take Spring Blossoms. Each target healed by a Fluorescence is healed for an additional 30,000. Are you clumped up? Is the group clumped up in this fight? Is that what's happening? Is there loads of people in your efflorescence and taking this damage over time that isn't bursty damage over time? Tranquility heals massive damage in a very short period of time. Spring Blossoms heals people constantly, but slowly. This is what you're thinking about. This is the thought going through your head. What does this fight demand of me as a healer? Or what is my role amongst the other healers? So important. Healing is a team effort. It's very much a team effort. You're looking to synergize well with your other members of your team. Moving down to the last one, let's talk about Stonebark first. It reduces the cooldown of Ironbark by 30 seconds and increases the healing from your heal over time effects by 20%. Looks very, very tempting, and sure, it is. The problem is the other two tend to work out better, particularly Flourish. Now, you're going to see most places say you only take Flourish. So what does Flourish do? It extends the duration of all your heal over time effects on friendly targets within 60 yards by 6 seconds. So all the hots you have out, if you're healing mad damage, being able to flourish them and keep them ticking for longer turns into way, way more healing than it should. It's massive, particularly if you've got a lot of hots out all the time. If you're not sure what I mean by hots, by the way, that's heals over time. If you have a lot of hots out and you're spam healing a few people, being able to extend them instead of having to recast those heals, right? So even in a 5-man, if you only have 5 rejuves out, right? So all I've done is click my rejuve button 5 times, and then I want to cast other heals. My rejuves are doing their job. My life bloom is doing its job. So what I can do is flourish them, extend them, and deal with other things. I could cast some regrowths. I can cast some healing touches. I could do some wild growths on top of this. That's what you're thinking about with Flourish. It extends your hots so you can either hot more people afterwards without having to recast those hots, because recasting hots is going to eat a lot of your global cooldowns, right? A lot of your spell casting time. Extending that with one button, really good, especially as 1 minute cooldown. Good God, you can do it regularly, so get used to using it. Moment of Clarity, though. Moment of Clarity. So this is your ability to cast heals for free. So you get this clear casting proc. You'll see when it goes around me. It's a really cool spell. It works on the next 3 regrowths and increases their healing by 15%. Now, in lower gear, honestly, even when people who are in... Because obviously I play with a lot of guys with a lot of high gear. They're like, just take Flourish. I'm like, yeah, I get what you're saying, but honestly, even without needing to Flourish, like, I'm not benefiting greatly from Flourish. I run out of mana because my gear is so fucking bad, right? It's better now. It's better now. I picked up this awesome trinket recently, which works day or night. Everybody loves it. It's so cool. But generally speaking, it's just mishmash gear that I've put together for the sake of getting these characters into a reasonable gear level to show some stuff off, right? So it's 908, which isn't terrible, but it's real mishmash of gear. So you've got things like a Sinidaria in there. Who the fuck would wear that as a healer? Not really. Right? So you understand where I'm coming from, hopefully. I found Moment of Clarity to be super useful when I was getting started, when I was having mana issues, and certainly, and I think this is a fair thing to say, you're not going to pick up this class and just be absolutely fucking god at it. No, you're not. You're not going to use the perfect innovates and have proper mana management from the very get-go of the fight. That's not going to happen. And therefore, Moment of Clarity, just being able to prop up your mana, I think is really useful, and you shouldn't be embarrassed to use that while you're getting used to your healer. And then when you're comfortable, move over to Flourish and get the best use out of it. So those are the talents and the stats you're going to be picking up. Let's have a quick look at the gameplay, shall we? The gameplay of the Resto Druid isn't something I can show on a training dummy. It's about knowing what the fight's about. You're a healer. That means you need to know where the damage is coming from. So whether it's Mythic Plus, you're asking yourself, what are the affixes? If it's in a raid, what is this boss about to do? And then we counter that by going, okay, this is about to happen. I've selected my right talents. Now I need to get ready for it. Your base spells are obviously going to be getting life blooms up on the target, usually the tank, but not always. Don't think that that's just a tank spell. It's not. If somebody's going to take more damage than the tank, and that can happen regularly, get a life bloom on them. Am I taking Germination here? Do I have something like Grievous where my party or raid is ticking down constantly? Then having Germination and getting double rejuves up, that's going to counter that very quickly. It's not a case of a set rotation. It's never going to be that. It's about figuring out what is the correct heal for this job. When it comes to raiding, if you're new to raiding or joining an amateur raiding guild, ensure that if nobody's organizing raid healing cooldowns, that becomes your job. Your tranquility isn't there for when things go, oh shit. right? Your tranquility is there at a set time. What does this encounter do, and where do I need my trank? Do I need it again in a few seconds? Do I need it again in a few minutes, in which case I can fit an earlier trank in? The same with Innovate. When am I going to be using Innovate? How long is this fight? Okay, this fight is going to be a few minutes long, which means I can use 2 Innovates, so I want to make sure I use both of them. That's just going to give me a little more mana over there. I'd love to be more specific, but I'm going to do a gameplay video that comes along with this guide. So keep your peepers open for that, and we'll go into more gameplay. But generally speaking, just start thinking to yourself one simple thing. What is the best heal for this situation? And the more you do that, the more habits you pick up, that's when you're going to start noticing that healing in general just becomes a much, much easier and much more relaxing and a much more fun task. In conclusion then, the Resto Druid, what a beast, right? This is why it's so universally good. It just is able to tailor itself so nicely to whatever you need to do. Solid tank cooldowns, wonderful raid cooldown, constantly being able to move around and deal with things, very quick movement with Displacer Beast, back into the action. Add-ons I recommend you pick up for this are something like Weak Auras or Tell Me When. To keep a track actively of things like Life Bloom, you want to be hitting those big up times on Life Bloom. But I would also recommend that you get some sort of party frame or raid frame like Grid, so you can customize it however you want. You can see on mine how I have my rejuve very, very obviously to be seen, right? I can see exactly what's going on with just using mouse overs. If you don't want to make mouse over macros, then I suggest you get something like Click, so it'll do it automatically for you, but it's entirely up to you. Ladies and gentlemen, the Resto Druid. Enjoy.